This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi Sai, I want to share with you something that was very startling to me. And that is, there's a tshuva in Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe was asked the following question. Somebody's parents were buried in like a faraway country, and they asked Rav Moshe, they want to be mefane the kever. You know, some people, they exhume the mace and they bring him, let's say, to Eretz Yisrael for kavod ha-mace. So they asked Rav Moshe, could we exhume, the parent was buried in some third world country, they want to exhume the parent to bring them to America, because all the kids are in America. This way, the kids could go daven by the kever. So Rav Moshe says a davar nifla ma'od. Rav Moshe says you're not allowed to. Why? It says Rav Moshe, look in the Magen Avram, who writes in the name of the Arizal that you don't go to a cemetery. The Arizal says you don't go to a cemetery. Only for the mitzvah of levayas hameis, and especially if you don't go to the mikvah. The Arizal says you only go to the cemetery lehavayas hameis uvefradim loitikein avon keri. Because if you go to the cemetery before you go to the mikvah, the chitzonim connect to you. Comes Rav Moshe, based on the Magen Avram who quotes this Arizal, B'chlal, you don't go to a cemetery even on a yard site. Rav Moshe says you don't go to visit Kever Avos even on a yard site. He says, L'maisa, it's not the minhag. But now you want to bring the mass from some third world country to America so the kids should daven at the kever. Who says the kids should daven at the kever? They shouldn't even go. Even though that's not the minhag, but at least you can't bring the kever over to America. So I was a little shocked by that. And I did remember that in fact the Chai Adam says that one should not go to the cemetery before they go to the mikvah. Because this way, there are the chitzonim there, you know, there's bad stuff there, and you don't want to be nidbak to you. And Chai Adam writes that one should not go to the Beis HaKvaros unless they go to the mikvah. In Klal Kuf Lamed Ches Sefei, Kasav Chai Adam, that tzrichim lizar ma'od shelo yichnesu lekvaros mishut tamei kari. Mishnah Berurah, ready for this Mishnah Berurah? I was shocked. I didn't remember this. Mishnah Berurah says that even on Tisha B'Av when we go to the cemetery, that's if you're 4 amos away from the kever. Avaloy al hakvaris mamish, afilu kivrei Yisrael, ki yesh lachoy sheyizdabku by hachitzonim. You have to be choishesh. The chitzonim are going to be medabik to you. So last night, like 1 o'clock, I saw that Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky writes, Ach lo noagu lizar b'zeh. The minhag is we're not concerned. The minhag is we're not concerned. He writes on the bottom, though, that even though the Magen Avram brings down from the Arizal about the Histabkos HaChitzainim, he says, Mishnah Berurah lo hiskar zois klal, but the Mishnah Berurah doesn't mention this. It's not true. He does mention it. Mishnah Berurah mentions it in Siman Tav Kuf Nun Tes. So be it as it may, if so, you know, for Bali Madrega, it's considered proper to purify yourself. So, you know, if somebody didn't go to mikvah, you take a shower, you know, if the person was tamei. But the minhag is not to be careful. We're not zahir. We're not zahir. So I saw last night, Rav Gamliel has a sefer about, actually now there's 2 volumes, about how to go to Beis HaKvaros. Yeah, Rav Gamliel Benowitz. It's called Tiv Hischazkos. So he has a whole program of how to prepare for going to a Beis HaKvaros. And he also deals with this issue. But I want to share with you what he says. He says, by the way, he brings down in Ois Chaf Aleph that Al Pi HaMavur B'Zoyar, that the Yomim HaMesugolim to go to Kivrei Tzadikim are Erev Rosh Chodesh and Tes Vav L'Chodesh. So that we got. You know, Siyata D'Shmaya. Can't say I planned it. I would like to have said I planned it, but Hashem planned it. And the 15th day of the month. So basically, he says a very interesting idea. He says, first of all, Yesh Inyan Eskula Lahaskar Maimer Eitzal Tzion HaTzadikim Mitoch Devrayim. based on the Gemara in Yevamos Tzadik Zayin, Sanhedrin Tzadi, B'chayra Lamed Aleph, you mention the Divrei Torah of the Tzadik by their Tzion. And he says like this. He talks about this concept that in the Beis HaKvaros there are chitzonim. And he basically says that before a person goes to the Beis HaKvaros, you should do tshuva. You should mahar b'tshuva. And this way you go kadosh b'tahar. And you're not in danger of being nizdabek by the chitzonim. So it comes out that his way of dealing with the issue of the histabkos hachitzonim is by doing tshuva. So l'chayra, it's even better. It's even better than being toivel in the mikvah. Like the Rambam says in Hilchos Mikvahos, that a person who learns Torah is metaher their minds b'mei hadas, in the waters of knowledge. That's also a form of tahara. It's the greatest form of tahara, mikveh Yisrael Hashem. But Rav Gamliel writes that when a person goes to the Beis HaKvaros, the way to protect yourself from the chitzonim is you do tshuva, and you use it as an opportunity to make kabbalos. You're makabel upon yourself by each tzaddik, whatever midah that they specialized in, you try to learn from, and you try to connect with, and you try to be makabel upon yourself in a small way to take that upon yourself. And by doing so, then the trip to the Beis HaKvaros will be a trip of aliyah. And as a Hashem, the Ran writes that the way the mechanism of the way the Beis HaKvaros works is that a tzaddik during his lifetime was nizdabek HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it was a place where it received chachma, it received kedusha from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it was basically lahavdil, like a Wi-Fi. The tzaddik is like a Wi-Fi to kedusha and to chachma. That's why the Ran writes, Hashem spoke to Miriam and Aaron, but Hashem said, Moshe, you go there. And Moshe went there, and then Hashem said, okay, and Hashem spoke to Miriam and Aaron. So the Ran asks, why did Moshe have to be there? Hashem wasn't speaking to Moshe. Right? Hashem said, Aaron and Miriam, why do you speak about Moshe? So why does Moshe have to be there? So the Ran says, Moshe has to be there because you need the connection, you need the Wi-Fi. Moshe was the connection to the Shekhinah. Once Moshe is there, so Moshe, lahavdil elef alfei avdos, was the hot zone. He stood there, and then people in his vicinity could get nevuah. Says Aran, the same thing in the Beis HaKvaros. Since b'chayayim the tzaddik was a Kabbalah of Chachma, afilu la'achar misasam, their atzamos still are. It's a Wi-Fi zone for Shefa Eloki. That's what the Ran writes. So anyway, all our tefillah should be neskabel b'racham of Ratzain, and we should be zoicha to the great day of Tchias HaMeisim when we see all these tzadikim again. Shkayach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.